Alrighty, well, I've already talked to you, but I'm Chris Evans, and I'm going to talk about the Invasive Species Campaign. And we've heard a little bit about these campaigns already, and they're really the kind of the focal area. Some are threat-based, like invasive species; others are habitat-based. But what I'm wanting to do is talk a little bit about why we need the campaign, some of the threats, and then get into two examples of the power of doing work collaboratively, doing work strategically through a campaign. And if you know about invasive species in Illinois, you know they're a big problem. And we actually do have wild hogs in Illinois. Everything from animals, insects, mammals, the famous jumping fish, all the way down to plants, problems, disease problems, and there's new ones coming on the horizon, things like white nose syndrome for one of our major group of species of greatest need of conservation, bats. It's not here yet, but it's kind of on its way. So regardless of where you work in conservation in Illinois, you're probably going to have to deal with invasive species one way or the other. That's really why we have this invasive species campaign. There's a lot of problems we see out on the ground. Things like how to put a nature preserve full of Japanese stilt grasses to show it. But a lot of our species of greatest need of concern are directly threatened by invasives. A lot of our threatened and endangered species, like this green trillium, if you look at the picture, there's a bunch of Japanese honeysuckle around it. These things are threatening our rare species, our habitats. It's a problem. Yeah. Some of the issues we have are things like kind of up to the fence problem, where you can only control up to your line and then your neighbor doesn't control it. Or species that are still for sale and still being used for landscaping, or other species we're moving around with the other work we do. These are some of the issues we see with invasive species, some of the reasons we need this kind of collaborative work. And we really want to build upon some of the good work that's already going on, like our cooperative weed management areas that are in the state that are using this collaborative effort, or our statewide Invasive Species Awareness Month. Again, another collaborative effort across the state. These are some of the kind of work we're wanting to do with the Invasive Species Campaign. Getting stuff done like education, presentations, more mapping, volunteer work days, early detection events, coordinated control. And this is kind of where the campaign gets into, really this coordinated efforts. And that's why I wanted to briefly mention two different smaller stories about this that it illustrates the issues that we have with that. So we're not spreading these things around. We can stop moving these plants around and these species around and really get together and work together. So the first campaign, I wanted to show a picture of my boy. That's why I put that in there. The proud papa. The first story I wanted really to get into was Mermet Lake. It's down in southern Illinois, and it's a really great story of an effort that brought together multiple agencies, multiple organizations and interests together to address a really major problem. If you're not familiar with Mermet Lake, it's a small lake. It's 400 to 500 acres, way down in southern Illinois. It's in an area that's pretty economically depressed, and it has historically had a very good fishery. It was a big draw for people in there. People utilized this lake a lot for fishing, for recreation, just there. But in about the late 90s, curly pondweed, which is an aquatic invasive plant, came into there and turned about 90% of the surface of the lake almost into a yard. It was just so thick that nothing could get in there. People had a hard time using this simply because it was so thick. The fish had a hard time living in here. It led to oxygen depletion and then eventually fish kills. So we had a series of fish kills directly related to this curly pondweed. That over 90% of the fish in the lake died, the sport fish. And of course, with no fish, you're not going to have any anglers. So the angler use really dropped drastically in this area, and so that was tourism dollars for the area. People coming in and using the area, they stopped using it, it wasn't effective. So to kind of combat that, a bunch of groups, some nonprofits, some foundation funding, DNR, kind of got together and really worked on controlling this issue. Controlling it, adding signage to keep from spreading it around, and actually doing research and monitoring what was on the ground so we could adapt and get it done. We're happy to say that now, after 4 years of control, we've reduced the population down to just a few spots, really nothing growing, just a few little areas. I mean, 90+% reduction in this curly pondweed. The fish are coming back, the plants, the native plants are coming back, the people are coming back, and it's a great example of tying that in with collaboration. The second story is one from northern Illinois, and it's really kind of early detection, finding species right away through a really innovative project called New Invaders Watch Program. So the New Invaders Watch program is based out of Northeast Illinois, and it covers plants and some animals too. And really the idea behind it is getting people on the ground to see these plants or see these new invaders and report them so they can be addressed immediately. It uses people that are kind of already on the ground, hikers, bird watchers, agency employees, people that are out there anyways, so they're out there just basically educating them to look for these species and then reporting them. And once it's reported, it goes onto some maps, and then alerts comes in, and the nice thing about it is it doesn't end there. It's not just a report system to collect information about these. It really is a rapid response system. So the information goes from here, there's funding built in to allow then these populations to be responded to and controlled before they have a problem, before they get out of hand. And that's a neat effort because it's a big area, it's kind of a complex system with a lot of land ownership issues in there and a lot of different owners. But getting in here, finding these, and then having the ability to respond to these infestations early before they get out of hand is really what needs to happen when you're talking about invasive species and such a threat. And really the only way they can do this is through this really broad partnership. Tons of partners all working together on the same issue in this area. And that's really where the invasive species campaign wants to go as well. It's a big problem, everybody deals with it, so we really need to kind of collaborate, get together to address this issue on a relevant scale. So I kind of wanted to end with the lessons learned so far from the invasive species campaign, and really the heart of it is this is a complex issue and we can only really address it by working together. That's the only way we can really help our vital lands and our species of need to deal with invasive species. Thank you.